Like a growing number of folks around the world, I have a smartphone in my pocket. In fact, I have it in my pocket almost all the time. And until recently, I hadn't really thought a lot about these settings that I can find for privacy that allow me to control what apps have access to what parts of my phone, not only including the camera, but also including the microphone. About a month ago, I was in my kitchen on a Saturday morning, and I had a bag of Cheetos in my hand. And as I admittedly took probably more than would be very mannerful and good to do in public company and put it in my mouth, my phone popped up a message. And the message said, you should really avoid tempting foods at home because that can lead to binge eating. And I stopped cold in my tracks. What is going on? Yes, I have apps like Pacer and other things that track my steps and try to encourage me to be more healthy. But how would my phone know that I was eating Cheetos? Well, I have been reading a number of articles and seeing a number of videos and documentaries in the past couple months, and one of them is called If You're Not Paranoid, You're Crazy by Walter Kern. And one of the things that Kern says is that when we grant access to different apps and services and allow them to use our microphone, we don't always know when they are activating that device. And so upon getting that message in my kitchen on a Saturday, I promptly went to my privacy settings and turned off microphone access on my phone to Amazon, Facebook, and Google. And I felt a little bit less creeped out. But I actually have started to become increasingly aware of surveillance in our society, not only at a private level with Facebook and Google and Apple and companies like that, but also with our government. And I recently watched a frontline documentary that was produced in May of 2014 called The United States of Secrets. And although I had heard about the Patriot Act, and I know that a lot of things after 9/11 changed in the United States with metadata and things that the government was tracking, I really had my eyes open to the incredible capabilities that not only governments, but also corporations and even individuals have to be able to open up our devices. In fact, one of the stories from this documentary I learned about is that it's now possible, and if you drive by certain U.S. military installations in our country, without you connecting to the wireless, without you attaching to Bluetooth or anything, devices can actually scan your phone, suck off all the information that they want, know exactly who you are, and identify whether or not they think you are a threat. In fact, in this article in Wired Magazine, it revealed that the National Security Agency is not only doing this to folks that might visit or drive by, let's say, a particular installation in the desert of Nevada, but also creating lists of people who are simply using privacy tools, like some of the ones I'm going to tell you about in this presentation. If you use Tor, if you use other kinds of privacy settings, there's a good chance that the document of information that the Department of Homeland Security has about you here in the United States is going to note that information, that you're trying to use these privacy tools. About a month ago, our family had a chance to go see this documentary, Edward Snowden. And while I had connected many dots about Snowden, this particular movie for my wife was a real revelation, because she had heard a little bit about this but didn't really understand what was Snowden doing when he was being a whistleblower. What were the things he was so upset about that caused him to completely give up his career and even his ability to live as a free citizen in the United States, and now he's still in hiding in Russia? What was up with that? Well, I think somewhere there is a line between paranoia and reasonable caution. And I think a little bit about Y2K, and I know some of you are probably too young to remember when we stepped into the 21st century, but there was a lot of paranoia about stepping into the 21st century and if computers were going to fail and what was going to happen. In fact, I remember my grandmother in Lubbock, Texas, would watch CNN all day long, and she would listen to this guy named Art Bell on the radio at night. And wow, did she ever get her brain filled with all kinds of terrible things that were going to happen the moment the clock struck 12 and we went into the 21st century. I do need to also say that everything I'm sharing with you is unclassified. I haven't had a security clearance with the government since 1994. And all of these things that I'm talking about are available for me and for you on the open web in documentaries and news articles and different kinds of sources. Because I really think we need to move a little bit closer to the paranoia side than we might be if we're simply sitting back and saying something like, why should I care? Because I think we should all care. So today I'd like to talk about 3 faces of the surveillance state. And we've already touched on a couple of them. First off being the government, second off being corporations, and third off being hackers, but I need to say black hat hackers. Because I'm actually going to be encouraging, especially the young people here in the audience and those that might watch online, to become hackers, but to become hackers for good and not for evil. Let's talk first about government surveillance. Mass surveillance is nothing new in the United States and the world. In fact, Wikipedia has some really good resources that you can dive into that can help you learn about the history of mass surveillance and many of the things that have been revealed by Snowden and others. But when the 9/11 attacks happened in New York City and the Twin Towers were taken down and we passed the Patriot Act in the United States, there were some big changes to the law. There were also big changes to what government organizations started to do. Now, in this time, there's also been dramatic changes in technology. It wasn't that long ago that I did not have a phone in my pocket that I kept with me at all times, which, by the way, is connected to GPS, and for those people who can connect to it, can tell them where I am on the planet exactly, within a few feet, I guess, at any time. So Snowden helped us understand some things, I think, that are very important. And I know that's a contentious topic, and people can't decide is he a hero or a traitor, but we can say this without a doubt, that you and I can speak more knowledgeably as folks that don't have access to classified information about what the government is monitoring and what kinds of things are they doing. And you've probably heard about metadata collection. You remember a few months ago there was contention over this terrorist that had a phone and they wanted to get that hacked, and they were trying to force Apple Computer to put a backdoor in everybody's phone, and then they found a hacker that could just help them get in, and that problem kind of went away. But the information that our government is collecting domestically about us in the United States is unprecedented. And according to many people, it goes beyond what the law would allow. There are things that the government could do internationally, but there's a lot of things they're doing domestically. So how about this? Have you heard anybody say this? I'm not a criminal. I'm not a terrorist. Why should I care about mass surveillance? Why should I care about privacy? And I think the answer to this question is perhaps one of the most important things that you and I can leave this room and this presentation with, an understanding of why it matters. And I'd summarize this in 2 basic ways. First of all, wow, I just pushed advance a lot more times than I needed to. The first thing that I would say, if somebody can kind of help me get my advance, because I think my remote, I need to go back to privacy matters. I got a little excited, I think. As you might, as you're talking about these topics. The first thing is that privacy matters. Privacy matters because we all have private lives that we are interested in not having broadcast around the world. I need to go back, I think one more. The second thing that we need to assume is that all the authorities are benign, or in other words, have our best interest at heart. Just because we live in the United States where we do have the Constitution, and we do have the Declaration of Independence, and we do have amendments, and we have all these things, and we have wonderful rights, that does not mean that the authorities that are in power are necessarily going to always have our best interests at heart. I've had a chance to travel to China and the Middle East, and there are many countries in the world that have different sets of values about how women are treated, what women are allowed to do, what you're allowed to wear. And they also have different ideas about the rights of citizens. And so for these 2 reasons, we really need to, I think, be advocates for privacy and advocates for our rights in this era of surveillance. And I'll try not to push the button too many times here. This last week, I read this article in the Los Angeles Times. Iran sentences another American, a 46-year-old from San Diego, to prison for, quote, collaborating with the United States. Well, he's a U.S. citizen. He just graduated from San Diego State University, and as he was visiting his family in Iran, they used posts that he had made to Facebook and social media as evidence of his collaboration with the United States, and he is now in prison in the nation of Iran. Now, this isn't just happening in other countries. We learned in October, prior to the election, that U.S. police officials used Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram with us as a surveillance tool to arrest protesters in Baltimore. And so the information that we share, the access that we sometimes voluntarily provide, or maybe don't voluntarily provide, can be used by authorities for things that we may not know or intend. This article in The Intercept, Surveillance Self-Defense Against the Trump Administration, says, quote, thanks to 16 years of relentless and illegal expansion of executive power under Presidents Bush and Obama, Trump is about to have more tools of surveillance at his disposal than any tyrant ever has. Those preparing for the long fight ahead must protect themselves, even if doing so can be technically complicated. And there's some really good suggestions about things that you might want to do and consider if you're an activist, if you're someone who's trying to promote political change, or just if you're a citizen trying to protect your own privacy. So let's talk a little bit about corporate surveillance, because corporations like Amazon, like Google, like Microsoft even, Apple, are definitely gathering a lot of information. I am a teacher, so sometimes I give homework, and I hope it'll be okay, but I'm going to give you a homework assignment right now. And your homework assignment is to log into Google, if you have a Google account, and go to that website. Go to history.google.com. What you're going to find is a very comprehensive list of everything that you have shared with Google and the opportunity to delete it. And so I do love many of the Google tools, and they're so powerful. We use them at our school. And I also appreciate that Google makes this very visible. But this also might be alarming to you, because do you know if you use Google Maps, as I did today, driving to Enid, and I said, Waller Middle School, not only is that information in a text form saved in a database, but my voice is saved on a server right here for Google to play and listen to. Everything that I put into Google is being recorded and saved. So, we need to make decisions about whether we're good with that or we want to make changes. How many of you participate in a rewards program somewhere? Okay, I do. And what does a rewards program ask you to do? What's your email address? What's your phone number? Why do they want your phone number? Some people are saying today that while the social security number has been so important, and we know to protect that and not to put that online and share that, our phone number is every bit as important, because it's almost become our lifelong number that you're going to have forever. And if people have your phone number and then they can connect the dots, they can do a lot of things. And these companies don't just want to market to us and say, hey, I know Wes likes Cheetos, maybe he wants to buy some now. They also want to sell that information to other companies. And there's billions of dollars being made today selling our information when we voluntarily give it away in many different ways. So the podcast Note to Self recently did a show about security and privacy and revealed that in 2011, 92% of children had an online presence by age 2. And of course, they weren't the ones choosing that. Their parents were choosing that. So another area of advocacy here is, what are we as adults deciding for our kids before they even have the ability to say yay or nay? I'm good with that, I don't want that shared. One of the best projects I've seen about Facebook privacy is this one from ProPublica. It's called Breaking the Black Box. And in addition to these episodes that go into the ways in which information is being gathered and shared about us, they've created a free extension that's available for Google Chrome that allows you to get a little bit of a deeper dive into what kinds of things does Facebook know about you. I think Facebook today makes it a little bit more difficult to dive into those privacy settings, but you can do it. And I actually made a bunch of changes to my profile and the things that I have shared there as a result of reading this and using that extension. The recently published book, Dragnet Nation, A Quest for Privacy, Security, and Freedom in a World of Relentless Surveillance by Julia Arquin also goes into many of these reasons of why this matters, we should care about it, and what we can do. So let's talk briefly about black hat hackers. I mentioned that there are two kinds of hacking. There's good hacking and there's bad hacking. How many of you have either been a victim of identity theft or you know someone who has? Okay? How many of you have had your email account hacked or you know someone who has? How many of you had a credit card or a debit card used without your authorization? See, the thing is, we're going to have more and more people saying yes to that because the cyber and the digital is just becoming more a part of our lives. But before we talk about that negative, let's talk about the positive. Because if you're a student sitting right now in this audience, our government needs you. We don't just need you to help protect our nation on land and on sea and in the air, as we traditionally do, talk about, but it's also in the digital ether, in cyberspace. And Rose State College here in Oklahoma City just did a series of seminars for students this past summer, encouraging awareness about these skills and the jobs that are available in this area. Did you know we had an unprecedented cyber attack about 3 weeks ago on Friday? Did you notice your access to Netflix or to Twitter or some other big websites being interrupted? Well, Brian Krebs, who's a great researcher and writer on security issues, was one of the specific targets of this unprecedented cyber attack. And why was it so big? Well, it was because of the Internet of Things. See, as we put light bulbs and webcams and other devices, and our refrigerator is smart and it's connected to the internet, it can be hacked. And so open tools are now available for hackers to use that can allow them to hijack those devices and engage in cyber attack. Incidentally, Brian's book, Spam Nation, is really a great one to look at. Ransomware is on the rise. What does that mean? It means you or I click a link, and then suddenly all of the information and files on our computer is locked up, and that lockup could even spread to our network, at our school or place of work. And until somebody pays a ransom with something like Bitcoin, that information is locked up. And hospitals and schools in the United States are the #1 targets of ransomware today. So the other level of this, unfortunately, is an individual level. And if you're involved in some kind of a custody battle or a divorce, or you have somebody who's angry with you, a simple Google search for spy on spouse phone will bring up a lot of tools that will allow people, if they can get you to click a link, to surreptitiously activate the microphone on your phone, activate the webcam, be able to collect information about you without you even knowing. And before you cast me off the stage and say, Wes, you have gone too far, recognize that James Comey, before he made news talking about Hillary Clinton's email server before the election, made a lot of news when he said this. This is the director of the Federal Bureau of Investigation. Everyone should cover up their laptop webcams right now. And he said that in September of 2016. So recognize that data can be weaponized. The hate that we saw in the election, directed towards journalists and directed towards others, can actually be directed towards any of us. And I think we need to be thoughtful as we decide what to share and how much to share. So briefly, what do we do? Number one, get informed. Flipboard is a great tool that I use to find articles and share articles about digital security and surveillance. It's available for Android and for iOS. In addition, use a password manager. Use a different password on every website. I'm not the first person to tell you that, am I? Don't press the advance key too often when you're giving a TEDx talk. And also, take on the responsibility of sharing this with others, because truly, like it or not, we live in a surveillance state, but we have responsibilities as well as rights in our country. And so the opportunity that we have to inform others and to stay informed ourselves is probably the best step we can take in this situation.